Hello, everyone. Welcome into Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. My name is Brandon Adams. Happy to be joined by Dog Nation's recruiting insider, Jeff Sintel. We talk recruiting on this program each and every week at this time. Kroger brings it to you, and it's always a fun conversation, but I don't know that it's ever quite been as important recently, at least in recent weeks, as it seems to be today, with G-Day looming and a huge list of 4- and 5-star names on the horizon on campus this weekend. We'll obviously talk a lot about that. But Jeff, we begin the show with big news as a segue heading towards G-Day, an appetizer towards the main course, at least in terms of the guys that are going to be on campus. Georgia gets a commit, and boy, didn't this all happen fast with the 4-star defensive back Jalen Kimber. You had a great piece up on him at DogNation.com that actually, in retrospect, ends up being a preview of the announcement that Kimber made today. Before we hear from Kimber in his own words about why he chose Georgia, how about a thought from you off the top? We haven't heard from you, at least in a video format yet. What is Georgia getting when it comes to Jalen Kimber?
First of all, love that white shirt, folks. I'm digging that white shirt. This might be Brandon's action figure whenever it comes out. He's going to be in that white quarter zip. This, according to a dear member of his family, was a gift, and man, they nailed it. They nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. This is the part where I talk about Jalen Kimber, and it's going to go a lot of, in Brandon's mind, yada, 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 yada. And then he's going to pick up on the, he visited Florida the weekend prior. And that trip to Florida just maybe was one of the impetus that made him decide to commit to the G. And what really happened here that was interesting is his father and Jalen, Boogie, you guys are going to have to get used to him as Boogie.
I like that.
Boog is what, you were shorten it, be a little
Hopefully he does better in the college football playoff than Boogie Cousins has done in the NBA playoff.
Yeah.
Hopefully for at least that.
But so he's a guy, they sit there and they said, all right, son, let's talk about the officials. Do you want to do 1? Do you want to do 3? Do you want to do all 5? And he basically was like, Dad, I'm done.
Yeah. We'll hear him in his own words about that in just a moment. It's really interesting stuff. In fact, why don't we hear a little bit from Jalen Kimber right now? First of all, there's a word that Kimber uses to describe his recruitment. You kind of described how he landed on the place where he was, but he talks about he and his dad and the sense of familiarity they were able to conjure up with Georgia on that crucial visit. Here is what Kimber had to say about that to you, about why it was ultimately that he chooses UGA. Here's Jalen Kimber.
That's where I felt the most comfortable at, and me and my dad felt most comfortable, and that's just the place that I really liked. Out of all the visits that I went, I just liked them the most, and I liked the country the most.
Can you put your finger on when you knew it was Georgia?
After I left, after I took that visit, I pretty much figured that that's where I was going to like the most, and that's where I was going to go.
So the word he uses there is comfortable. It reminds me a little bit, I don't want to make a comparison between the two players because I don't really know yet who's going to be the best among the two, but it reminds me a lot of what we heard from 4-star defensive back, I guess eventually 5-star defensive back, Tyreek Stevenson from the class of 2019. Kimber there uses the word comfortable. I remember Stevenson talked about how everybody's always in a good mood, everybody's always relaxed. I think the goal of a coach is to establish a visit environment where it does feel comfortable. No one wants to feel like they're getting a sales pitch. People don't like that. So Georgia, in the case of Stevenson a year ago with the reveal and everything he was a part of, and with Kimber right here, is able to establish something that Kimber, in his own words, and his dad seems to vouch for on the basis of what Kimber says there, as comfortable. That's a really good word if you're a Georgia fan. You want recruits feeling comfortable on your campus.
So it's funny, Brandon, he visits Georgia on March the 28th, and that was the same day he visited Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech got the morning, and the Georgia Bulldogs got the afternoon, which stretched into an evening visit. And they leave Butts-Mehre. They leave the visit, and they're walking out towards the car. And Jalen Kimber puts his hand on his dad's shoulder, and he says, Dad, I like that one. That one's going to get an official visit. I know already that's going to get an official visit. And here's what happens. He keeps visiting. He keeps visiting Alabama, Auburn. He visits Clemson. He visits Florida. And after every visit, him and his dad kind of gathered up, and they sat there and they said, so what you feeling? And he said, I still like Georgia. I think Georgia's still the place.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting in the interview that you conduct with Kimber, and you can read more of these quotes at DogNation.com. He actually got very honest about the fact that the degree to which he fell in love with Georgia is not something that he anticipated doing, and he doesn't have any reason to tell that story if it's not completely true. He says, listen, my initial plan was to take a whole bunch of official visits to set the stage for that, but how things can change quickly. Here's more of Jalen Kimber on exactly how all that happened.
I wanted to take multiple officials, but I didn't think that I was going to like Georgia that much. So we were going to take unofficials and then figure out where we wanted to take an official. but it didn't work like that.
Do you plan to take any other visits? What does the word commitment look like to you?
I don't plan on taking any other visits. I'm pretty much done.
I'm pretty much done, he says there. But at the start off, he says, listen, I was looking to take a whole bunch of official visits. I was looking to go shopping around and see what's the best place for me. What does Georgia do on the basis of a visit like this to take a guy? Hey, listen, these official visits can be pretty fun. That's a free pass to roll out the red carpet, and most of the schools that a guy like Jalen Kimber is going to have his choice between are going to be very good at hosting official visits. What does Georgia do on the basis of an unofficial visit like this to lock down someone to the point where they're like, I don't need to see anything else from anywhere else? How does Georgia get that done?
Well, I mean, I think it's very interesting because, I mean, listen, Boogie or Jalen visited a lot of big places. He visited Notre Dame. That has the academic component he's looking for with a future business degree. But then what Jalen does is he sits there and, listen, this Kimber family is as dialed in as it gets with their recruiting. It's really funny when they get to Georgia or they get to any school, they're basically like at the theme park and they go to different rides for the visit experience that everybody else does. They want to talk to the nutritionist. They want to talk to the strength coach. They want to talk to flexibility coaches. They want to talk academics. And they don't need the pictures. They don't need the jerseys. They don't need the stadium tour or whatever. They're worried about those things. And listen, parents, this is a great teaching moment for recruiting if you've got a son coming up. When they got the offers, this is what the Kimber family said. I need to know what type of offer is this. Is this an offer eval, which is basically come to camp and we'll see if you're as good as we think you are? Is this a, hey, let's just start talking offer? Or this is a, we will take your commitment at any time.
Wow.
And Georgia very clearly said, son, we're ready when you were ready, maybe like a Motel 6 offer where it's like, we're going to leave the light on for you. Whenever you want to commit to Georgia, you're going to be in good graces at the University of Georgia. Very, very impressed with everything about Georgia from the jump. And now, Brandon, what this turns into is this is kind of like a victory lap visit, a victory lap official, a victory parade official. And now a lot of Georgia fans are going to see him at G-Day on Saturday, and they're going to call him Boogie.
One more I want you to hear from Jalen Kimber himself, or Boogie Kimber as he likes to be known as. Jeff, you asked him directly, what's the thing about Georgia that you like more than anything else? And Kimber had a great answer to that. Take a listen.
What's your biggest single reason why you're going to be a Georgia Bulldog?
The coaches really, the bond that I got with them and the relationship that I built with them, I just feel more comfortable there. I feel like they'll bring the best out of me mentally and physically. They run a pro-style defense, so I feel like that's going to be best for me, especially me trying to go all the way. I feel like that'll be best, and physically that's going to take care of itself.
So he wants to play in the NFL. He feels like the Georgia coaches and the scheme they run are going to give him a chance to do that. But specifically here, should this be credited as a big win for the brand new defensive backs coach Charlton Warren? How influential is Warren when it comes, when Kimber's mentioning coaches there, how prominent is Warren on the mind of Kimber when he says that?
Well, I think that's part of the relationship, how Georgia was legitimately genuine through the whole period. They kept it very honest and very open with him. And really, maybe a tell-all here is who he committed to. He committed to Warren first, and then Warren was like, let's get the head man on the line. Let's talk and tell Coach Smart about it. And, you know, Coach Smart is jet setting. You know, I don't know if he's jet flying, limo riding, wheeling, dealing.
Kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing.
5-star stealing, wheeling, dealing, I guess, or whatever. But and then finally, Kirby and Jalen got to talk. And look at those clips, people. You're going to see 4.47 on the laser and on the foot. That's the foot speed there. He has a 4.00 short shuttle. If you look at his opening combine testing right now for the 2020 class, still ranks in the top 20. And this is a recruit that has seen his stuff blow up. And we mentioned this during his official visit preview. I think the hardest part with recruits, even the really talented ones, is I think more recruits crumble rather than more recruits rise or break out and shine. And that's because of the adjustment to college life is hard, the grind is hard. And Jalen Kimber, you have a guy who already has a very regimented day. He eats, he trains. This is a time to study. This is a time to work. This is a time for everything. He is going to be well suited to be a college athlete, and he will also enroll early.
Let me get a couple comments on Jeff's point there. Philo Beto says it's good to see a dad so involved with his recruitment. You just heard Kimber himself mention his dad a good bit. Jeff, you referenced him as well. Philo says that makes me think the commitment's going to stick. It's more than just a visit high, and I'll agree with Philo on that. When you've got a parent vouching the way that Kimber's dad is vouching for Georgia in this case, and seemingly a guide for Kimber in the recruitment, I agree with Philo. It makes it seem a whole lot more real. Johnny Lester also says, I like this kid. It's a 6'2" frame, a 4.440 elite speed. He's ranked among the top 10 corners in the country. He's a baller. Kirby keeps signing those elite studs, and we'll obviously watch to see him sign come December. But as it stands right now, adding elite names that 2020 class, I do think you have to include Jalen Kimber in that conversation. Also, Jeff, one of the things I think a lot of Georgia fans will like about Jalen Kimber is immediately after he makes it official with his pledge, he's also doing a little recruiting of his own. Take a look at this. A.J. Henning's a wide receiver you've told us about from the state of Illinois. Henning goes on to congratulate Kimber on Twitter, and the quick response from Kimber back to him is, hey, it's your turn. So all of a sudden, Kimber says, you see me commit to the G. How about you join us here as part of this 2020 class for Georgia? Dog fans like Georgia recruits and Georgia commits who want to recruit other guys, and Kimber seems to be already pretty busy on that.
So I got something for you. Let me borrow those papers for a minute, Brandon. We're big on visual aids in the 2019 thing at Before the Hedges. Remember how we had that weather map back there? So this is another teaching point. This is what the Kimber family does. They got sheets when they go on visits. They got this one. This evaluates programming in this area. This one evaluates it in that area. This one evaluates it in that area. And then what they do is they give a program from 0 to 5 how they felt they rated. So they go back through all their sheets, sound like a pros and cons list, and they're like, okay, Georgia's got a lot of 4s and 5s. Now they get that logic. This is the logic part. They want the logic part to match up with the heart and the gut part. And that's exactly what happened with Georgia. And that's why this is such an informed, and it seems to me like a very sound and solid decision for Jalen Kimber and his family.
I'm going to need those back so we can move on to the rest of the show. It's our Before the Hedges presented by Kroger here. Good to have you with us in the Dog Nation video channels for that. Tyler Stanfield had an interesting comment in the Facebook comment section a little earlier on the subject of Reed Gilbert. Will he be at G-Day on Saturday? We're going to have an update on that. Let's tease that and give folks a chance to stick with us. We'll do our top targets list coming up in just a moment, and Jeff will tell us then what he knows about Reed Gilbert. We'll do that coming up in just a couple of minutes. Let me also say this. It was kind of fun when Jalen Kimber announced his commitment a little earlier. We're actually live on the air with Dog Nation Daily. I don't know if you know this or not, but as Kimber makes his announcement, I'm lucky enough to be on the phone with John Stinchcomb, the great former Georgia Bulldog, a guy who to this day remains a big fan of the Dogs, and a guy who, by the way, will join us tonight at 6 p.m. at the Marlows in Dunwoody for our big signing day preview. We were talking about that a little bit as he was on the phone with us, and then the Kimber news comes out, and I asked John, John, how impressed have you been with the recruiting work that Kirby Smart has done since he's been Georgia coach? And Stinchcomb points out another interesting facet about Kimber that really makes him like a long line of recent UGA commits. Here's some good stuff from a great former Dog, John Stinchcomb. Take a listen to this.
It's unreal. I mean, honestly, it puts a smile on my face because the cupboards are staying full. I think Kirby has done an amazing job of raising the bar and changing expectations for what recruiting looks like for the University of Georgia forever. You hear fans talk about if you could just put a fence around the state and keep in-state talent at home, how much better would the University of Georgia be? And now you see that Georgia's recruiting on a national scale. I mean, you're pulling in some of your top players from out of state, and it becomes commonplace for it to be 4- and 5-star athletes that are committing to the University of Georgia and coming to play ball. And I think that's a testament to Kirby and his staff.
I think that's great from John Stinchcomb. He says, hey, listen, there's at one point in time it was the dream to just be able to keep the best in-state talent in the state of Georgia. And now Jalen Kimber, being from Arlington, Texas, another example of it's not a fence Georgia's building around Georgia so much as it is a gate. It's trying to leave wide open for people to come into the state with, and Kimber's another example of that. And if you're a guy that's been following UGA recruiting for a long time, this is clearly a brand new age where Georgia signed only a small handful of guys. I think it was 7 total from the state of Georgia a year ago. It may be fewer than that for 2020.
I think what's interesting is, Kimber is a guy, now the second guy in back-to-back years where Georgia has taken a DB out of the state of Texas. That's always interesting. Remember Lewis Seen a year ago, but he's also really connected to Chicago. That's the area where he grew up, and that's where that connection with A.J. Henning Jr. also comes about. Everything else there as well. And you look at this, what Georgia's doing, and John said this before, he doesn't know if he could be recruited anymore by the University of Georgia as an in-state prospect, because he was only about 6'4", 6'5", and maybe 260 pounds coming out of Parkview High, and that just doesn't fit the mold anymore. One thing I want to ask you, Brent, I want people to kind of lend an ear to this part right here. Everybody, we have this weather map. Earlier this week, we had a story about Andrew Rame out of Oklahoma, and that's Georgia going after another potential number 1 player in another state as well to kind of add to that state map collection for the Bulldogs. But also another visitor, and you teased this a little bit, but I thought it was interesting that the number 1 player in Canada is also going to be at G-Day. Now, he's a 6'6" tight end, runs a 4.67 in the 40. That's a laser time, but we've talked all this time on this program about states. What if Georgia and Kirby Gedden, at least if you're in Gainesville maybe, if Georgia and Kirby Smart can add another top player in another country along that as well? I mean, these are the days where folks don't need to think about that thread on the Dog Nation forum. What is wrong with Georgia recruiting?
Yeah. Listen, at this point in time, there's certainly a lot more right than what's wrong. We'll cover all that coming up as part of our top targets list. We look at who will be and who might not be at G-Day on Saturday. Before that, though, here on Before the Hedges presented by Kroger, let me remind you, we're heading towards the holiday weekend this week with Easter. You can hop in and find everything you need for your Easter celebration at your local Kroger. I'm talking about whole boneless beef tenderloins, boneless pork tenderloins, the Kroger shrimp platters. It's a perfect thing for your Easter brunch, your Easter dinner, whatever you're getting ready to do. Kroger's got it for you, so please check out your local Atlanta Kroger. With that said, let's hop back in here to our top targets list for 2020. Here on Before the Hedges, we'll crank that up and take a look at the list as it is, including name number 1 on the list. A guy that I'm happy to say is going to be at G-Day on Saturday. That's the 5-star running back, Kendall Milton Jr. Jeff, Kendall Milton, in a couple words here, can you let us know what is Milton looking to see on Saturday?
Basically wants an affirming visit to make sure that this is a true positive. The feelings on Georgia, wants to see that crowd and see how it kind of dwarfs some of the other spring game crowds he's seen. And this is a way where Georgia, I think, is probably already secured an official visit down the line for Kendall Milton, but this will be a chance for Georgia to cinch the official visit. And you look down this list, Brandon, I think the number might get to 10 5-stars.
Wow.
When you count the 2021 class and maybe 2022 class as well. The other thing to keep in mind here, this is what I find intriguing about G-Day. And I was speaking with another media colleague about this, and I said, legitimately, when I look at G-Day now, I think you're going to have the Notre Dame game and you're going to have Texas A&M games. I think this G-Day might be the 3rd biggest home game for recruits of the 2019 season when you're looking at everything like that. That is very interesting. And the other thing, look at this, you got Keely Ringo coming from Arizona. That's an unofficial. Kendall Milton coming from California. That's an unofficial.
Yeah.
You've got Paris Johnson coming in on an official. You've got Mikhail Sherman coming official. We'll get to all those names. But
sure we will.
You have a lot of guys coming from outside the Southeastern Conference footprint. And they're also coming, Keely Ringo, another name. They're not coming on official visits, they're coming on unofficial visits.
Yeah, I think the nature of that's really important. I think when you can still dangle that official visit later on, it just makes it a lot easier to win the commitment when it's all said and done. Let's keep our list going. Item number 2 on that list, name number 2, is a guy that we were asked about a little earlier, Arik Gilbert. Gilbert did make this official on Twitter a little earlier today. Jeff, he is planning on being in the building next week, or this Saturday.
5-star tight end, he's rated as an athlete. 6'5", 255. I don't know if Georgia can sign more harder to guard or unguardable receivers in the 2020 class. Marietta High School, he's number 2. He keeps moving up that list, and he's actually been planning to make it to G-Day for quite a while.
Georgia, throw to those tight ends on Saturday. Let this man see what he wants to see. Get Charlie Warner and John Fitzpatrick and that crew involved. Name number 3 on the list of top targets here on Before the Hedges. It is another G-Day visitor. It's Keely Ringo. Georgia just won the defensive back today in Jalen Kimber. Keely Ringo's visit to a G-Day this Saturday, it's among the biggest.
Yeah, Ringo's interesting because he's coming back again. He's bringing the family again. He wants to get a little bit of that who wit it at G-Day as well in terms of potential barnstorming, package deal, mega class for the Bulldogs. What I like about Ringo, and this is what I want to try to match up. Remember all of that hype and furor and fervor for Tyson Campbell a few years ago as a top 5, top 2, top 3 cornerback? That's Mr. Ringo out of Arizona, as you can see the video here. And I feel the hype and the hype that was there for Campbell, well, it's considerable there for Ringo as well. But I think the proof on the field, and I think the proof in the pudding, the hype, the production, and the potential is all there with Ringo, where that type of hype that was reserved for Campbell really belongs towards Keely Ringo.
Let's see name number 4 on our list. Top targets here on Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Name number 4. How about Darnell Washington? A lot. You know I love this. Online chatter. Ooh, there's been some online chatter about Darnell Washington as of late. Jeff Sintel. I love it. I love it.
Did you give me a good old boy yell in the middle of that?
Yeehaw.
Belongs in Dukes of Hazzard Part 3 or something like that. But I digress. He's not going to be at G-Day. We'll come back in June. Really likes Georgia. He's been to Miami. He's been to all other places. Really likes Georgia. Georgia has a real shot, folks, at adding Darnell Washington and Eric Gilbert in the class.
Yeah, Cliff Payne's giving me grief because I said Eric a moment ago. Or Rick Gilbert. Let me give him a little credit there for the correct pronunciation. The man deserves to have his name pronounced correctly. All right, next name on our list before the Hedges are presented by Kroger. I may or may not pronounce it correctly. How about Marshawn Lloyd, 5-star running back for DeMatha Catholic, Maryland, the state of the Dogs hope can be good to them here in this cycle. Lloyd is a name just like Kendall Milton. I've said before, this is a position I'm going to be unapologetically greedy. I want both Lloyd and Milton, 2 5-star running backs for the 2020 class. Got to have the tandem.
Unapologetically greedy.
Unapologetically greedy. I got to have them both.
Would that be worth 2 good old boy rebel yells or something like that?
Yeah, you may hear that for sure.
So neither Milton nor Kendall Milton or Marshawn Lloyd will be there. Those are the 5-star backs.
Well, Milton will be.
Milton will be. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Darnell Washington won't be.
Didn't mean to get a Fred G. Sanford heart palpitation for you.
That's the wrong kind of breaking news. I don't want that breaking news.
Kendall Milton's going to be there.
All of a sudden, flights are getting canceled.
Marshawn Lloyd will not.
I'll drive and pick him up in an RV and bring him across the country.
The family truckster.
That's right.
Milton will be there. Lloyd will not. 5'9", 5'10", 215. Marshawn Lloyd is another priority for the 2020 class.
All right, name number 6 on our list before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Another name who will be here on Saturday, and I believe it's an official, if you'll correct me. Official visit for 5-star linebacker Mikael Sherman. How about this? How much fun is this one going to be?
6'3", about 235, can play inside or outside, one of those hybrids. He has 4'4", 4'5"-ish, high 4'5"-ish speed in the 40. That's on a laser. That's an opening time. His last visit was the University of Georgia for his birthday weekend. This is another visit with his same family members for G-Day weekend. I think the last thing maybe that Mikael Sherman needs to see is a game experience at Georgia.
Yeah, well, I'll certainly hopefully give him a chance to do that. Moving on the list, it's so much fun talking about these big-time names. Name number 8 on the list of our top targets as Before the Hedges presented by Kroger rolls on here. Name number 8 on the list is...
Number 7.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm waiting for the name to come up. It is up. It's Tate Ratledge. And somebody asked about Tate Ratledge in the comment section a little earlier, the good-looking offensive tackle out of the Darlington School. Jeff, one of the things you've been adamant about, and I think you're correct about this, and I'm glad you've been on this topic as much as you have been, is the fact that Georgia needs offensive tackles. You think, well, they've recruited so many offensive linemen. The truth is, Georgia's success has mostly been with the interior offensive linemen. The 2020 class is going to be big for the tackles, and certainly this may be an example of that.
Yeah, you want to count, even counting DeMarcus Hayes. I've been kind of beating the drum a little bit for the last 2 or 3 months where I kind of project great season for Isaiah Wilson and just another very good season for Andrew Thomas. I think that they would be in Roger Goodell's league after that. And you also add DeMarcus Hayes. Georgia would vector out and lose 3 tackles off the depth chart off the 2019 team. And that's why a guy like Tate Ratledge becomes very important. Yes, Broderick Jones is a huge priority. He's already a commitment to Georgia in the class of 2020.
Is it a big deal that Jones is not coming to G-Day?
I think it's unsettled right now. It's maybe a maybe. I think it's something about getting a ride to G-Day or something like that, or trying to find a way, find time in his weekend schedule to get out to G-Day. He's been to Georgia a lot. He went to Georgia just real recently, and it's really funny to be a good a player as Broderick Jones is. Not a lot of impressive, like really all-out chases that are coming his ways. Some of the bigger names are just kind of conceding him to Georgia.
As they well should.
Tate Ratledge.
I wish they would all be that
To
way.
me, when you talk about names that are on this board or names in the 2020 class, to me, out of a lot of guys, he has improved his stock the most with me over the last 4 or 5 months.
All right, really quickly here, name number 8 on the list. Our top targets for the class of 2020 for the Georgia Bulldogs. It is Paris Johnson Jr. You teased us about this a little earlier. You also briefly mentioned this on Dog Nation Daily earlier this week. When you're talking about big-time offensive linemen, is there a chance that this guy shows up? Is there a chance that this guy is a part of the mix?
Oh, yeah, he's going to be at G-Day. I think you're talking about showing up in the class, right?
Well, no, I mean, is it confirmed he's definitely going to be at G-Day?
Yeah, he's going to be at G-Day. So here's what this would be.
I guess I did not know that was confirmed.
This would be Paris to Athens Part 3 because he's taken 2 recent unofficials to Georgia. This should be an official. Now, a lot of the industry still has him committed to Ohio State.
Yeah.
But we had on the show, we had on the site earlier this week, there was a report from Cleveland.com. That's his kind of local hometown news outlet there in Cincinnati. He plays for a great St. Xavier program. His high school coach basically said, and I'm going to paraphrase, Paris Johnson committed to Urban Meyer in Ohio State.
Yeah.
It is no longer Urban Meyer's Ohio State.
Sure.
And we kind of consider this commitment and that commitment to be validated or vacated.
Yeah.
And that's why they're looking around.
Come on now, I like to hear that. Let's throw 9 and 10 up there together and just mention both these kind of on the way out the door here. Cedric Van Pran, another good-looking offensive lineman, this one from Louisiana, and a guy who just released his top 5, Zykevius Walker from Sly County. Finish off this list with Von Pran on the one side of the ball and Walker on the other.
So Cedric Von Pran has taken 2 really good unofficials to Georgia yet. Still not an unofficial to Georgia yet. Him and Akinola Ngunbi, they both took a tandem official visit to Oklahoma last weekend, and they did not come out of that visit as public commitments for the Sooners. So if those are wondering about Georgia and their chances for those 2, I think that got a lot better, both of them coming out of their official visit weekend in Norman, Oklahoma, as uncommitted public prospects at least. So that's something for Georgia fans to think about there. I think Georgia values Von Pran a little bit higher than Ogunbi, but those are 2 guys that are really on the big board, the sliding board for Georgia on the interior offensive line, and would be very interesting. I kind of wonder if those 2 guys don't take another tandem official visit to Georgia sometime soon.
Look forward to seeing that. That's an interesting piece of information from Jeff Centel. A lot of these top targets you've just heard from have been very active on social media this week. Coming up later on in our program, we'll kind of catch up on what some of the hot topics on social media from these guys have been over the course of the last 7 days or so. We'll do that coming up. But for now, sometimes before the Hedges presented by Kroger, we like to relax and have a little bit of fun. And, you know, we focus on these guys so much as football players, it's easy to forget sometimes these are still high school guys. In the cases of some of these guys, juniors going to this prom, and we're in that time of year where a lot of these guys are in kind of prom season. And it's important to celebrate them, not just for being football players, but for the high school students they are, and what for so many of us was a big-time rite of passage, prom season, getting dressed up, getting the tux on. A lot of these guys are doing a lot of that same kind of stuff right now, and well, we thought it'd be fun to both celebrate them for that, but also do a little fashion judging here too, a little who wore it best type of thing, I guess. So I'll kind of turn the floor over to you, Jeff. Let's take a look at some guys that we know look good on the field to see how good they look off the field. And can you take a look at this? How about Trayvon Walker here? We're calling this what's the song that everybody likes these days?
Old Town Road.
Old Town Road. Look at the red shoes matching the red dress of his date. He's got the red bow tie on. Now, this is Trayvon Walker, the 5-star UGA signee, on his way to the Dogs. Good for him enjoying his senior prom here. This is much better looking than that. Do you remember when we saw him in January back at the Touchdown Club of Atlanta Awards Banquet? The orange and purple deal that he was wearing there? This is much better looking than that.
Well, first of all, I'm going to give Trayvon Walker, among his many talents, is he's got some GQ to him as well. And I mean, he had the purple shoes. He had everything going with that ensemble. But I think this one speaks to Brandon in a most certain way. You got the red and black. You got the reds. You know,
I like it.
You got the horses in the back. You're
Yeah.
part of that Old Town Road Billy Ray remix. Simply put, I think this is an epic prom photo.
You think Trayvon Walker can ride that horse?
I think he can.
I think that there's a weight limit for horses. I think if you're heavier than 250, I don't think you can ride a horse. I don't think Trayvon Walker is going to be riding that one.
Do you think Trayvon Walker can pull that horse down the field? That's another way to look at
that
it.
may be. So we've gotten off to a great start here. Trayvon Walker, I'm going to give him a what's our
5 stars.
scale? I'm going to give him a 5 stars. That's a 5-star prom photo right there.
And one of the things, we kind of make this fun, but if we do anything around our Dog Nation platforms when it comes to recruiting, is we want to show you many layers of these kids, not just how good they are, not just where they'll go to school, not just what they're rated, but we want to show you a little bit about their lives and identify them as people. And that right there, everybody else, I hope when they see Trayvon now, they sit there and go, that is a classy dude.
Yeah, very classy dude. All right, you got another one for us here?
Next up, we got a little 2020 spillage into here right now.
All right.
That is your future quarterback, Carson Beck. He's rocking some pink there as well.
I'm a big fan of pocket squares. The fact that Beck's going pocket square here, I think, is a classy look. I like that from Carson Beck. Appears to be in the Florida Everglades. It's kind of an odd spot for the picture to be taken, but I do like I like the pocket square from Beck.
I think he sits silently with a thought bubble, thinking to himself, "Gosh, I'm glad I didn't have to go to that Florida spring game over the weekend." But that's a prom photo. That's your 2020 quarterback, Carson Beck. He was at Athens last week. He will be in Athens again this week for G-Day, doing his part.
You want your quarterback to know how to put on a suit. I mean, clearly Beck knows how to get dressed up. I could see him future dog walks. I could see him doing that. If Trayvon's wearing those red shoes he was wearing a little earlier during a dog walk, that's going to be a good time. So I'll go thumbs up for Carson Beck right there.
I might give Carson maybe a 4-star just because we need to see a little bit more. We need to see about the shoes. We need to see how he doesn't have an equine animal in the background of his photo.
Yeah, there's no horse. I guess if we're starting with Trayvon Walker, the fact that Carson Beck doesn't have a horse in his photo, only 4.5 stars.
Maybe Carson Beck needs a catapult or maybe a laser-guided rocket behind him because that would speak to his game a little bit.
Yeah, I can't give him 5 stars because, as you said, Trayvon Walker had a horse in his photo. But Carson Beck's doing a pretty good job there.
Nice smile. Looks like he's happily committed to the Bulldogs right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Good for him on that. All right, let's roll on with the next one. We got another one here?
We've got more. And our next one up out of the board is another prom photo. And this,
Look at that.
That is your future inside linebacker. It's only a matter of time at the University of Georgia. That's
Wait,
my
is this from last year?
No, this is from this weekend. This past weekend, Nakobe had practice. He had a scrimmage. This is a neat little inside baseball story here. His scrimmage ended maybe 2, 3, 4 o'clock last Saturday. He hopped on a bird, went down to Memphis, and participated in it. He participated in his senior prom right there. Look at the red jacket right there, the red shoes.
That man's all business right there. I like that photo a lot. He's like, I don't need a date. I'm just going to prom.
His date's probably that.
I'm gonna leave with a date.
That's his prom vehicle right there. A little bit.
Good for Nakobe team. I like that photo.
College man, he's got to earn first team reps. He's not worried about high school dates right now and everything else. And like I said, I think it's only a matter of time before Nakobe Dean is a starting inside linebacker at Georgia.
Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna give that one. I'm gonna guess. Phone rings up.
Oh, well, that's an important call. We're gonna
I'm gonna give Nakobe. I'm gonna move Carson back down to 4 stars. I'm gonna give Nakobe Dean 4.5 there.
4.5. I mean, you got everything. You got your vehicle. You've got a nice little red jacket with the black.
I like the little. I don't even know what you call that. Like down there near the sleeves. I don't know what's going on down there, but that's a lot of action. A lot of action.
He's got his traditional necklace that he's wearing on an open collar shirt.
Is that traditional? I don't know. I don't know if that qualifies as traditional, but I do like it.
For Nakobe, it's typical. That's what he likes to wear.
All right, we got any more here?
Yeah, we got some more. We got how about a future tight end for the University of Georgia? Brett Seither. This is out of the Tampa area, Clearwater Catholic. He's sitting there, and he's got a little seersucker going on right there.
Yeah, I was going to notice that too. Now, that's a man after my own heart. I'm very much a Southern preppy type guy, so you have me at hello. If you're rocking the seersucker, I'm a big fan of that. I don't like it quite as much as Nakobe Dean's kind of like solo photo, and there's a horse in this picture. But I do like the seersucker from Seither. I'm gonna give him 3 3/4 stars.
Well, I think he's higher than his actual 24/7 Sports composite rating. He's a 3-star tight end. I think that's almost a 4-star photo. And
yeah, I'm gonna give him 3 3/4 stars. I like the seersucker. I think the tide goes well with it. Can't tell if he's got a pocket square or not, but I like Brett Seither here.
And I will resist the urge to make some funny joke about a tight end with a good catch or anything like that in his prom photo as well, but looks like he's having a lot of fun.
Yeah, there you go. I like this. This is Who Wore It Best here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger, as we take a look at some of the very fashionable choices made by a lot of future dogs as part of prom season.
I think we got a few more. We got at least 2 more. We got at least 2 more from the behind the glass. There you go. That is
Look at Bill Norton.
Bill Norton. Now he's got a little ears lowered a little bit. Some of that lion's mane has been chopped off a little bit, but he's going with a classic black tuxedo.
You're right. I was about to say the same thing. Classic black tux. You like to see guys throwing back to that age. You know, not a lot of people wear the traditional tux anymore. I like that from Bill Norton. You know, there's no animal. There's no car.
Got a bridge.
Prop. Yeah, there's a bridge in the background. A heavy Memphis flair to these photos, by the way, too, I guess.
Memphis.
Yeah, you got a little Mark Cohn walking in Memphis. I'm going to go 3.5 stars for Bill Norton. You know, getting dressed up in tuxes is not what I want him to do. I want him suplexing guys on the football field. So I don't need him, killing it for me in prom photos.
Defensive lineman.
I'm going to go 3.5 stars.
I'm going to go forward. Defensive lineman in a tux. That's a neat little look, especially with the haircut.
Yeah.
Looks like he got his ears lowered a little bit, as our grandfathers would say.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
Ready to go.
Could use a cummerbund or a vest with that, but he's looking good. 3.5 stars.
Gives me a minute to just drop in. He's a 2019 signee, and I would expect almost all the 2019 signees to be there at Georgia for G-Day on Saturday as well.
There you go. Good to hear that. They should get honored at halftime probably. All right, maybe we have one more here, I think.
We got one more, Brandon. This is one that we found from last year.
Oh, this is classic.
But he's still considered a 2019 signee.
Very good point.
Rylan Go-D, not Go-Day or whatever.
As Kirby Smart once called
some
him.
variants are. You know, think Go-D, Go Defense, Go Junkyard Dogs.
Yeah.
Rylan, baseball player, very
Classic
great
black
athlete.
tux here.
Looks like he's at a golf course, taking a picture right there at a golf course. He's in a classic black tux with the red. You know, he's going to mend, guys. He's coming back from a knee injury that ended his high school career. Look for him to maybe get the bubble wrap off of all that and start really seeing what he can do and cutting it loose maybe sometime August, September.
So, 2 tight ends show up in here. You got Rylan Goody there. You had Brett Seither a little earlier. They're both, I think, chomping at the bit. Seeing Trayvon Walker one more time is not a bad thing. So there's no doubt Walker wins. I mean, I actually feel sorry for everybody else trying to compete with Trayvon Walker. When you're popping the red shoes that match your date's dress, and you got the red bow tie as well, and then there's a horse in the picture, like that's he essentially hits for the cycle.
I'm gonna resist the urge.
Congrats.
I'm gonna resist the urge to hammer on the point that that's a stud defensive lineman and that's some imagery there. But here's what I like: a Southern gentleman flair to this picture as well. Is he has humbled himself before the lady. He's got his princess, let's call it, during prom season, up on a pedestal, elevated above him. He's kind of just doing his thing, trying to help her out, lead her along. That is another good thing about that Trayvon Walker.
Well done by Trayvon Walker there. It's before the Hedges presented by Kroger. We're heading towards Easter on Sunday, so don't forget to fill your baskets with the best at Kroger. I'm talking about whether it be the baskets, the toys and the grass that goes in there, and so much more. It's 2 for $7 in select candies and chocolate snacks. So if you're ready to fill up some Easter baskets, Kroger is a great place to be able to do that. All right, coming up, we've got our weekly 6-pack of trivia questions that we always do. We will have our what do we call it? Hurry up. We go hurry up with questions and comments. Our buddy Connor Riley also wants to join us here as well. I can actually hear Connor today because I've got my earpiece in. Connor, yes, sir.
Yeah, Trayvon Walker, safe to say he's taking his prom date to the Old Town Road, and he's got the horses in the back.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He says Old Town Road, get the horses in the back. He's feeling very good about that. It's a great look for Mr. Trayvon Walker on all of that. So we got our hurry up coming up in a moment and our weekly 6-pack as well. But speaking of recruits being active on social media, we just saw some very active prom photos. Also a lot of sounding off, and from time to time, we like to let you know exactly what the online chatter that has been as of late. So Jeff, why don't we fire up a few of these other social media comments as of late and take a look at what the topic of conversation with a lot of these recruits has been over the last couple of days.
We might call this part of our show. We're really going to do these really quick. We're just going to show you kind of a week in review or the week that was in Georgia recruiting. I want to call this Brandon's online chatter.
Yeah, there we go, online chatter. All right, let's take a look at the first one here. Altric Barlow weighing in. What can you tell us about this?
Okay, he's a 3-star offensive lineman out of Virginia. Really looks like Texas Christian might be in there or his in-state Virginia Tech.
I feel like George needs a better emoji.
I would say...
it's not a very tough-looking dog. I always have a problem with that.
Maybe they should just go with a G numeric, like a power G.
But shout out for using the turkey for Virginia Tech. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, but this is a guy you don't hear him a whole lot about associated with Georgia. I think he took a trip to Georgia, really liked it, and maybe Georgia has got him on that keep the fires burning thing right there. But credit to Barlow, but I don't really see him in the Georgia plans right now.
But we like to see those finalist lists coming out this time of year. Let's take a look at the next one here.
We've got another one right here, and this is Robbie Ashford. And I think you mentioned it on one of your
Yeah.
shows. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time with this, but if folks that wonder, is Georgia going to take two? Are they going to go after two elite guys? I think the prominence of Carson Beck in this class clearly moves Georgia out of his top two, much less the top eight. Robbie Ashford also going to try and play some baseball as well.
Now, the fact that Bo Nix has seemingly emerged at Auburn, does that take Ashford's interest of Auburn away a bit? Because it looks like Nix may have the inside track on being the starting quarterback there.
I would say master recruiter Dan Mullen in Gainesville, Florida, probably has a chance here with Robbie Ashford, especially getting him on his football field rather than on the baseball diamond. I think Florida has a real chance there.
All right, before the Hedges presented by Kroger, let's see the next top tweet of the week, as a lot of these recruits are active on social media, including a little bit of a preview of an upcoming tweet from Jay Hardy.
So Jay Hardy, I want you guys to know this. This guy goes to a very nice private school in Chattanooga. It's an all-boys private school. He had it up here to get accepted into Stanford.
Wow.
He got an offer from Stanford, and that already checks a lot of boxes right
So
there
he's
for
smart
Georgia.
enough to get into Stanford. Is he smart enough to realize he shouldn't go there?
But he's rated, Brendan, as a defensive end type. I think he's more of an ideal defensive tackle type for Georgia. I think he is very high up on the board for Georgia in the 2020 class.
Nice.
Don't see his name mentioned a lot. He's told me he's not sure whether or not he can make it to G-Day as of yet, but Georgia is really, really after Jay Hardy as a defensive lineman. Other names, Alex Huntley is there, Jacoby Cowan is there. Those are other guys to think about, and even Jordan Birch, the 5-star from South Carolina, who will also be at G-Day on Saturday.
All right, let's see the next one here. Carson Beck showing off a couple different numbers. Now, I have a very strong feeling about this. I know Peyton Manning was 18. I don't like 18 for a quarterback. I like 11 for Beck a lot better. I don't like 18.
Here's my feeling.
18 does not look good.
When I see this, you want Beck to kind of make his own platform at Georgia, but
Too many 11s already, you mean?
Let me ask you this. If Beck goes on to do Prom-like things at Georgia, is it about time to retire that stinking number at the University of Georgia?
Would be Murray, Fromm, and Beck at that point.
I mean, is there a point you can go back to, who was the 11 before? They've got lots of good 11s at the University of Georgia, so not quite David Green's 14 that falls in that mix, but goodness gracious, I will say this. There are schools that have quarterbacks that have done half of what Jake Fromm and Aaron Murray have done, and that digit is retired and up in the rafters as well. So is this going to be the 34 for Georgia quarterbacks, the Georgia 11? If Carson Beck picks number 11, might be a situation where Carson is 18 his freshman year at Georgia, and then maybe if Mr. Fromm spends another year at Georgia, then 11 will open up. Might be that's some sort of
I don't like 18.
transition.
I don't think it looks good. I think you should wear a different number. Maybe I'm just poisoned by Peyton Manning. Let's see the next one.
So
That's a good looking photo.
This is a guy right here. I thought it was curious, Brandon. Right on the heels of Cedric Von Prom visiting and taking his official visit to Georgia, to Oklahoma. He posts pictures from his unofficial visit to Georgia on his Instagram feed. So I don't know if you can follow the posts like you would follow the follows or follow the visits, but it was clear that Cedric had Georgia on his mind, even when he was coming out of the Oklahoma visit.
It looked like he was wearing a visor with his helmet. That couldn't be less important to this story, but I'm glad to see guys still wearing the visor. There's a little bit of a reflection there. That's a visor, right?
Yeah. And the thing with Von Prom is he's made
They should bring back the shaded visors. Remember those?
Yeah.
Like Darth Vader. I used to love those.
He's made multiple unofficials to Georgia. He's even been to Georgia for a game. And he actually, compared to most recruits, got some FaceTime with Kirby Smart on his unofficial visit earlier this year. Clearly, Mr. Von Prom is a very big priority for Georgia. And listen, your boy Sam Pittman, he was in on him like months ahead of LSU when most people thought that when LSU offered Von Prom that it was going to be a done deal, but it seems like Georgia's holding on to some early momentum there.
That's nice to hear. If you're just joining us before the Hedges presented by Kroger, we're taking a look at some of the top social media conversations from UGA recruiting targets over the last week, including one here from the quarterback, Gunnar Stockton, showing off his ability to play another sport besides football. How about a little work here on the baseball diamond?
So he had a couple tweets this week on the baseball diamond from Rabun County. I think he has every chance to be the top 2022 quarterback in the state for Georgia. He hit a home run over the last week, and also, get this, Brandon, he had 3 triples in a game, which says he's got extra base power, and he's also got a little bit of legs to turn those doubles into a triple.
I like to hear that.
Gunnar Stockton, who ran for over 1,000
What
yards.
a great name.
It's a great name, and loaded class of 2022 quarterbacks in the state of Georgia. Gunner is one of those that already has a Georgia offer.
Well, there you go. All right, here's the next one. Justin Flo releasing his top, if I'm counting correctly, 12 here. Georgia is in the mix on this. My guess is if he whittled that number down some more, Georgia would remain among these finalists.
Yeah, very interesting things I'm hearing.
What is that, like half the Pac-12?
Justin Flo also has a younger brother that's pretty good as well in the 2021 class. But interesting here, some of the things I'm hearing, Brandon, with Justin Flo, even though he's a 5-star.
How you going to have Arizona State in your top 12?
Because you have great visits at Arizona State, man. Have you seen the campus and the scenery there at Arizona State?
I'm sure there's plenty to sell you on.
Well, with Flo, though, really important point. Number 3 overall recruit in the country, number 1 overall inside linebacker in the country. But I don't know if Georgia doesn't value other inside linebackers a little bit higher than Justin Flo. Chiefly, a guy I'm thinking about is one Laneith Whitehead out of Athens Academy.
Very interesting to think about.
Most people, there's a nice little debate going on. When you look at Flo's tape, it's very good and it's got some wow exclamation point hits, but fundamentals there, wrap-up tackling might leave a little bit to be desired. And he's also not quite the athlete that Laneith Whitehead is as well.
Very interesting. Let's see the next tweet. This one coming from Amarius Mims, doing some good work in the squat here. 450 pounds.
Yeah, and when you're 6'7" and already 302 pounds, this is the number 1 player in Georgia for the state of 2021. He's out at Bleckley County. He's one of those Royals. Interesting thing there, the head coach there is our good friend Vaughn Lassiter, who used to be the head coach at Houston County when Jake Fromm threw a few passes around Warner Robins back in his day as a Bear. But this kid is going to be offered by everyone, and you want to talk about upside. The Bleckley County staff was told by the Georgia staff that they feel Mr. Mims is the top tackle in the country in the 2021 class.
I should correct myself here. Christopher White, one of our top fans, has called me out. He's a nursing student at Arizona State. He is upset with me for taking a jab at a Sparky, so I apologize for that.
Christopher, you can get after BA on that one right there, man.
Now, Marshawn Lloyd, we mentioned a little earlier, showing it off, as so many of these guys do this time of year. Big guys, but still able to get it up and put them down on the track. Good to see Marshawn Lloyd also doing that.
So he's a track guy. He's very committed to his track program. That's why he's not taking any more unofficial visits until after his high school track season is over. Out of DeMatha Catholic, you saw him on our top targets list. Already 215 pounds and moving, and he's a guy that's already going to go below 11 seconds in the 100-meter dash. Also runs the 200.
And very impressive from Marshawn Lloyd. Anything else for us here?
We got a few more. That's our Canadian tight end right there, Theo Johnson. Remember how Georgia's...
I like how he's representing the Maple Leaf in his Twitter profile. That's kind of cool to see.
One thing Georgia and its recruiting under Kirby has never done is they've never signed the number 1 player in another country, aside from Nolan Smith now in the state.
So here's my question. Does Canadian high school football play by Canadian football rules?
I don't think so. I think they play by some of the schools. I think he's from Ontario. That's a great question, though, by the way, Brandon. But I think some of the schools have
120-yard fields,
guys in motion at the snap.
What do they play with? Do they play with 10 or 12? They don't play with 11. I know for a fact they don't play with 11. I just can't remember if it's 10 or if it's 12.
Here's what we do know. We don't want to get too much into Canadian high school recruiting, but look at this kid. He was being recruited by Georgia. People are going to go tight end. Come on. What about Darnell Washington? What about Brett Seither that's already signed by the University of Georgia? What about Eric Gilbert? This is a guy, though. He's going to be at G-Day on Saturday.
Wow. No one's ever successfully invaded Canada except for every other country that's ever tried to invade Canada.
So this is another one. This is a Kansas football tweet. Everybody remembers Ludacris from G-Day a few years ago. Les Miles is there. There's already a lot of energy around the Kansas program right now.
Is there energy around the Kansas program?
There is. They got Ricky Rose there for their spring game. Ricky Rose out of the 305. He was sitting there. They got Les Miles, who's a walking soundbite, the world's greatest press conference, at least currently in the Big 12. So, that's a little bit of juice. I mean, my question is, this is why I wanted to show this. Georgia, has it already reached the point where they don't need a sideshow act like a Future, like an NBA young boy, like Migos? I mean, listen,
these are musicians.
These are all musicians, but they don't need somebody like that to make G-Day a must-see affair.
I asked this before our show started. When Ludacris was here in 2016, Ludacris was popular when I was young, and I'm not young anymore. So, I mean, do recruits even know who Ludacris is anymore?
Oh, yeah, they do from the Fast and Furious movies. But I'm telling you, you get one of those name acts that I just dropped right there.
Tim Hope says, what about Rick Ross?
Yeah, Rick Ross, Ricky Rosette. That's who we were talking about. Rick Ross was the guy at Kansas.
I don't know his pseudonyms.
Ricky Rosette, that's what I was talking about. You know, purple Lamborghinis, green Gucci suit. I know somebody knows that Rick Ross out there on our feed.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, do you think recruits really want that? I mean, I don't think they care.
I think it's something different than a visit. And, you know, as much as people complain about the music at G-Day or the music at Georgia during the warm-ups when the recruits are out there, what if you've got a future, or you got the Migos playing while everybody's warming up? I think that would get...
Well, the Migos thing seems to work because...
huge fans.
Yeah, like legit fans. Like as opposed, I've seen, this is not a jab at Florida, but it is true. Florida's tried to connect itself to the hip hop community before, and it seems a little forced. Whereas the thing with Migos at Georgia seems fairly authentic.
Seems like they're just kindred spirits.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else for our top tweets?
I think we've got at least maybe one or two more. We got any? We tweeted and we caught the online chatter.
Yeah, that is all the online chatter from around the last week or so. We'll try to keep you updated on all that when it comes before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Also, before we're done, speaking of Kroger, we'll give away a $50 Kroger How About Them Groceries gift card. That's coming up as we go hurry up in just a few minutes. Before that, Jeff likes to put us on the spot here each and every week. He likes to see how much we know about the topic at hand. It's our weekly six-pack with him. And Jeff, once again, the floor is yours.
Brandon, this has been, 2 or 3 weeks since we've done one of those. I was out 1 week.
Yeah, that's right.
You were at Augusta National eating a pimento cheese.
We're kind of back here once again in our customary format. It has been a little while here.
So you feel like you're on a hot streak? You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right, let's see. Question number 1. Got a G-Day flavor to this one, of course. Which current Georgia Bulldog committed on G-Day during his high school years?
Okay.
We got Rodrigo Hot Rod Blankenship.
Yeah.
Jake Kermada, defensive back Chris Smith II, and also wide receiver Trey Blunt. So which one of these current Bulldogs actually committed on G-Day?
So I know it's not Blunt because he did his the day after Demetrius Roberts initially chose Cal. It could be Camarda. It could be Chris Smith. The honest truth is I don't remember when Hot Rod committed, so I'm going to take him out because I don't know. I'm down to Camarda or Smith. I'm going to say, and our 15 seconds should be about up here. I'm going to say Chris Smith, but I think it could be Camarda, but I'm going to say Chris Smith.
So we've got RT367 on YouTube coming in with Camarda. Steve Burnett usually knows his stuff, also comes in with Camarda.
Joe Saxon says Chris Smith.
Shane Bentley has Smith. Fred Davidson had a Jaden Hazelwood reference, who's really showing out at Oklahoma already, as we thought he would. We've got a buzzer or a bell. You came up with your final answer?
Yeah, I said Chris Smith, but I guess I should have known that.
Jake Camarda.
I knew it wasn't Blonde. I was pretty sure it wasn't Rodrigo. It came down to Camarda versus Smith. And I guess it was Jake Camarda who kicked his way into the hearts of Bulldogs fans on G-Day.
On G-Day. A couple hours after G-Day, but that was a big day for Georgia because they needed him to.
I actually do kind of remember that now that you say it.
Number 2, Brandon is currently 0 for 1. Let me know how you guys are doing out there as well with your batting average. Which current Georgia Bulldog actually decommitted from the program on a G-Day?
I remember this one. This was Adam Anderson. I remember this very, very well. You can give us the selections, but I remember this very, very well.
I figured folks would remember Adam Anderson. That's why I didn't go through a list of guys. You had to come up with your own answer.
And it's kind of funny. I mean, it is a good reminder of just how much things can change. And that was during a time, and y'all hear me on Dog Nation Daily every single day. That wasn't put on for me. Heading towards that class of 2018, from G-Day until about June 27th, which was the date that Zamir White committed.
You remember that one?
Yeah, that's Zamir White's birthday, mom's birthday, I should say. From that span of time, I was worried about Georgia recruiting. They were like 70th in the country in recruits. They guys decommitting on G-Day. It's not a good look.
Guys like Donovan Georges. You had guys like Javion Becton in the class. They didn't end up in the class. And
some of those guys are actually doing well where they are now, though.
Caleb Tanner used to be in that class as well. And it was really funny because after Anderson decommitted on G-Day, there was really nobody left in the class, really. Yeah. And then Kermada gave a little bit of momentum for G-Day.
Georgia was like 70-something in the country at one point in time recruiting for the class 2018.
Looked very much like a Florida Gators type recruiting class at that time.
Very much did. All right, that's fun. We're off to a good start here. Question number 3 is part of our Kroger six-pack with Jeff Sintel on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger.
Yeah, I got to thank those good folks at Kroger, of course. Now, this is a little more.
I like the G-Day thing.
G-Day trivia. Which one of the following has not happened at a G-Day in Georgia history?
This is good.
So you got A young Andy Griffith comedy routine.
Uh-huh.
B, there was co-ed dances.
Okay.
C, a boiled peanut eating contest. D, famous alumni or
This is
celebrity
good.
coaches.
This is good.
Or E, a Marine Corps marching band appearance.
This is a really good question. First of all, I'm all about bringing back famous alumni, celebrity coaches. I think they should do that. In fact, I'll volunteer my services. I'll coach either team.
Would you throw the tight end?
I would throw the tight ends. I would love to be an honorary coach for G-Day. I am available for that. Andy Griffith, I'm going to say this has happened. Co-ed dances, I'm sure that happens in Athens every single weekend, so I'm going to say that happened. The boiled peanut eating contest, that's the one I'm spurious of. I think that's the right way to use that word.
Spurious.
I'm not going to say that happened. The Marine Corps marching band, I could see them having been there. I'm going to say the one that has not happened is C, the boiled peanut eating contest. Philip Jordan Wells agrees with me, by the way.
Would spurious be a derivative of the Latin term for spurrier, which means a little out of place?
Maybe so.
In Athens?
Jacob Millen, Edwina Atwood, Easy Brown, they all agree with me. Hunter Short as well. Tim Hope does say B. I think it's the boiled peanut eating contest.
Well, you got the ding earlier.
All right,
You
I
nailed that.
get the bell. Nice job.
It was a boiled peanut.
I'm doing really well in these
Now, I'm
today.
sure some people at a tailgate went and wiped out a bunch of boiled peanuts
Yeah.
after a thrilling G-Day game.
Oh,
but,
I'm sure, yeah.
Never been an official, boiled peanut.
Sanctioned contest.
That's right.
Just pickup contests.
Can you imagine what it would be like there if you went to Georgia and you learned that there was a co-ed dance at the Ramsey Center or the Tate Center or something like that? It just doesn't happen anymore, does it?
They don't have dances anymore?
Maybe the Classic Center, or something like that. It's probably sorority or Greek type
Is
thing.
it like cotillions? Is that what this is?
I don't-
Is that a cotillion's a dance, right?
Anybody out there that's still
like
in the
this.
Georgia student community, let us know if they still have dances or if there's enough of that downtown for everybody to get on.
Let us see the next question.
Next question, we've got, like this one, Brandon.
This is a good one.
Which Georgia legend actually quit the team around the time of spring drills because he was so worn out from the previous season?
Really good question.
Only to later rejoin the team.
Really good question.
So this was a G-Day, and I bet if there was a G-Day, a Dog Nation daily program way
Right.
back when for some of these guys,
Yeah. Dog Nation way back in the daily.
way back there, I guess that would be on the Telegraph or something
Yeah.
like that. Anyway, there you go. First off, Lindsey Scott, Run Lindsey Run. Did he run away from the program
Yeah.
for a little bit? B, Frank Sinkwich, one of Georgia's Heisman Trophy winners. C, Fran Tarkington. We had a misspell there. Everybody knows here his name is Fran Tarkington. Francis Tarkington, if we
Yeah.
wanted to do the English version or common name. D, Ray Goff, now owns a bunch of Zaxby's restaurants, but
Sure
at
he
the
does.
time was a former coach, former great SEC Player of the Year, ran the Veer. Or E, Charlie Trippy.
So I'm going to assume it's not Trippy because Trippy's like a war hero. He's not getting tired. Frank Sinkwich early on. I want to say I remember stories about he and Wally Butts, legendary former coach, not getting along well together. He's an option for this answer. Fran Tarkenton is a little bit of a loose cannon at times. I could see him being an answer. Pretty sure it's not Goff. Could I see it being Lindsey Scott? Maybe so, although not. My choices are Sinkwich or Tarkenton here. I have a memory of hearing stories about Sinkwich and Butts not always getting along. I'm going to go with the 42 Heisman winner. I'm going to go with Frank Sinkwich.
Brandon, this is one of your shining moments so far on Before the Hedges. This is where you've totally unpacked and deduced. You did a deep dive on that question. You looked off the safety. You found your hot read, and that is a correct. Give the man a ringing bell. Brandon Adams, nicely done, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's one of those things, like, I'm obviously way too young to have ever seen Frank Sinkwich play. I haven't even really seen that many highlights, but you do hear these stories, and some of those stories kind of trickle down over the course of time.
Very good job. And again, Brandon, it's got to be that white shirt. This is like Tiger in his red, Sunday red or whatever.
This is my Wednesday white.
You've got it going
Wednesday
on.
white,
You've
yeah.
got it going on today. This is Brandon has now cracked the knuckles. He is in fuego here on our six-pack trivia.
Let's keep them going. Let's do another 10 of these.
All right. Now this one is
have
one of
no
those
idea.
time span.
I don't
Remember
know.
back in the day?
Yeah.
What was the biggest G-Day crowd of Kirby Smart's time as a player at Georgia? Now it shows you a little something right there because those are all well under 20,000. Those kind of
Yeah.
look like a Florida spring game attendance
That's
total
right,
there. 16,445, 8,411, 10,196, 12,845, and 19,016. Remember this, one of Kirby's years at Georgia, there was renovations to
Olympics, yeah.
Sanford Stadium for the Olympics. And Kirby actually had to play at Clark Central along with the Georgia team that year for G-Day. Actually had 2 interceptions at the game.
So I do know. So it's funny you'd say that, and that's old enough that I should remember. I'm old enough I should remember this. I don't remember G-Day being at Clark Central. I don't remember that.
It was at Billy Henderson Field, another former Georgia Bulldog as well.
So if that be the case, then you're tempted to say it was the B with the 8,000. I mean, how much could Clark Central really hold? Apart from that, I was not going to say B because in Sanford Stadium, I've been to a lot of these G-Days from back in the late 80s through the 90s, and I remember there typically being a lot more fans than that. I was probably going to say A, 16,445. You gave me some new information with the Clark Central thing, but I'm going to stick with my original answer. I'm going to say A, 16,445. I did not know that G-Day was at Clark Central. That would have been a good question.
So go ahead, Wednesday Whites, rule again, man. There you go, you got that one correct.
But they didn't get 16 grand at Clark Central, did they?
No, I think that was the 8,000 that they got. Remember the question is, what was the biggest G-Day crowd?
Oh, not the biggest. Okay, yeah.
So you got it right, but you had the wrong.
I'm thinking about the wrong way. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of what I would have thought.
So Brandon, sometimes when you're wearing your Wednesday Whites, you misread the putt, but it still goes in.
So G-Day in the 90s was played at Clark Central. I did not remember that.
Correct.
That would have been a good question.
Yeah, correct. So learned a little something here on Before the Hedges. Even this fella right here learned something on Before the Hedges.
Definitely did.
2 picks for Kirby Smart for Jim Donnan's team in that game. And remember,
good job.
No such thing as mid-years for Kirby back then. So he's one of those players that even though he played and he was a 4-year letterman at Georgia, he only played in 3 G-Days.
Okay. Very interesting.
Moving right along, will Brandon add another one?
Question number 6.
This one is very, very subjective. We were talking about this during a pre-show meeting.
Are trivia questions supposed to be subjective?
This one is subjective because which current Bulldog would Dog Nation deem to be the biggest recruiting hidden gem of the Kirby Smart era? So we're looking for guys, and interesting how they're all on the current team right now, expected to play big roles. Which one of these guys do you feel was a Bulldog that wasn't as highly rated, but man, the Bulldogs did a great job of mining that kid out?
So if you give me these choices, Eric Stokes, Solomon Kinley, Jordan Davis, Brian Harrion, I think looking at the 4 side by side like that, I got to take Kinley because thus far he has started the most games. Now, Stokes is going to have a big opportunity to make a name for himself this year, and a lockdown cornerback, especially in the absence of DeAndre Baker, is certainly a big opportunity. Jordan Davis, as a run-stopping nose guard, has a big opportunity, and Brian Herring could be a 1,000-yard rusher. So Stokes, Davis, Herring all have a chance to add to their legacy this year. But looking back on the careers thus far, I mean, Kinley's actually, at this point, started a lot of games for Georgia.
A very, very good, very perfectly logical, insane explainer. The prism, the kind of filter I looked at for this one is simply which one of these guys potentially will end up being the best player or currently has the best skill set or best overall rating. I think my answer, which is what the guy that runs point guard on this trivia,
please,
I went with Eric Stokes.
Okay.
Simply because I think Eric Stokes will be playing at an all-SEC level this fall. I think he will be your number 1 cornerback at Georgia. And he's the type of guy I can see being a very early NFL draft pick. But let's have this one disclaimer on this one. All these dudes right here have been great finds. I know we put a lot of focus on the 5 stars and highly rated guys. Each one of these guys, in their own certain way, will have a big imprint.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. None of those 4 players, Harry and Stokes, Davis, nor Kinley, none of those are composite 4 stars, correct?
Oh, no, that's one of the things you looked at right there. I mean, Harry started getting his stars when he got his Georgia offer. Eric was a 3-star. Kinley was a 3-star. And people don't remember this, but Sam Pittman in the 2016 class, Georgia only had about a month and a half to recruit dudes. And that was in the days where they were looking for guys like E.J. Price and everyone else like that. Antoine Jackson, who ended up going to Auburn, and then he ended up going to Ohio State. But they went and found a 370-pound guard in Florida out of Jacksonville. He was a lifeguard. And look, folks, that young man has been immovable over the last 2 years from his guard position for the University of Georgia.
But isn't it interesting to think that all 4 of the guys just mentioned there could be major contributors?
Major.
Will be major contributors this season. So on a roster filled with very high 4 and 5-star talent, it's some non-blue chip recruits who could be among the most impactful players on the Georgia roster. Kind of an interesting thought to deliver good stuff from Jeff Sintel as part of the weekly six-pack here on Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. And speaking of Kroger, don't forget you can order online for your Easter brunch and a whole lot more. You got party platters starting at $19.99, and obviously they go up from there. You can order online, or you can see a deli associate for more information. Now, orders must be placed 24 hours ahead of time to make sure it's ready to go for Easter, but please check out your local Atlanta Kroger for a lot more on that. All right, now let's give you a chance to weigh in with your thoughts, questions, and your chance to have an impact on this program, and we'll be looking to do so by giving away a $50 Kroger How About Them Groceries gift card. It's our hurry up. We try to get as many comments as we can here over the course of 5 minutes. We'll put 5 minutes on the clock, and we'll get ready to go right now. In fact, we'll dive into some here right now. Jacob McMillan wants to remind Dan Mullen it's been 900 days since Florida's beaten Georgia. What did you think about Mullen's comments from this week, Jeff?
I don't know. It seems like he seems like Dan Mullen is smarter than that. I don't know whether. Listen, I'm sure the typical Georgia fan. I'm trying to stay objective, even though I've kind of been tried to be comedic during this broadcast today, but I think right now he is writing checks with his mouth. I don't know if his roster can cash. And I guess he's trying to make himself relevant by poking the bear a little bit, but really it just doesn't seem like the SEC way to poke fun at your rival with something as meager as your own not so lofty spring game attendance total.
Steve Burnett, back to the subject of those 3 stars we just mentioned, talking about Kirby can't develop talent. Do you think that those 4 names we just talked about, that is an example of Kirby developing talent, right?
I think it's a good example here of, Georgia got 5-star Trayvon Walker, which makes everybody give a job approval rating, at least on the fan world, a higher job approval rating for Trey Scott or whatever. But you got to remember, Georgia identified the guys they wanted in the class, and sometimes those guys didn't mirror what the recruiting rankings look like. If you ask the Georgia staff, if you're in those meeting rooms, I bet you're going to hear some of the chatter, which is like they can't wait for Zion Logue, they can't wait for Timon Mitchell, and they can't wait for Bill Norton and some of those guys that they handpicked out of the 2019 recruiting class to be their guys for the defensive line at Georgia.
Easy Brown asking about Tank Bigsby. Is Georgia looking at Bigsby at all right now?
I think they're looking, but this is one of those things where I think Bigsby, they realize is a talent. He's the number 8 or number 7 running back in the country, but they just have their eyes on other guys right now, and it's the way Georgia recruits, especially at the running back position. I think it's something, Kobe Pryor's in this thing as well, the really good-looking running back, the 3-star at Cedartown, who also has an offer from Clemson, mind you, of all places right now. I think what they're doing is it's something a little more than keeping the fire burning and something a little less than making them feel like a true priority.
Hunter Short says over-under on 2 commitments this weekend.
Are we counting G-Day week already? Are we counting Kimber?
Jalen Kimber in on that?
I mean, you would think that you would have to go with the over if you were already counting. 2.5 is a really big number, though, but if you count Kimber, I think this is a class. If you give me maybe 2 days on each side of G-Day, which is where we're in right now, I think maybe Georgia can get to that too.
Drew Roman says bigger year, Lawrence Cage or Eli Wolf, which of the 2 grad transfers?
Wow. I think Lawrence Cager is the guy. I think a lot of people, like I've did some digging around the Miami program and some people that covered the Miami program last year, and on the surface level, people would say Lawrence Cager is up and down. He's going to catch some big balls. He's going to drop some that will make you, kick the furniture maybe if you're in your man cave or whatever watching the game, or kick the seat in front of you. But also Miami had a lot of problems with their passing game last year, and really a lot of the things where Miami had to do always had to be throws on the run and outside the pocket where there wasn't a lot of timing. And I think I've been told by people who have a pretty good opinion on this, pretty good handle on this, that sometimes those things led to Cager's inconsistency.
Leon Hutchinson asked about whether or not Georgia's found an elite kicker as a replacement for Rodrigo Blankenship. They just took the preferred walk-on from Savannah. Is he the heir apparent to Rodrigo there?
Definitely don't think so. I think Kermata is going to get some looks. I think Brooks Busey, who owned there right now, is a preferred walk-on, will also get some looks. Jared Zirkle is also going to be at G-Day. He's one of the bigger kicker targets for Georgia in the 2020 class. I think what's going to happen in kicker is Georgia is going to get all there together, and they're going to get all their good guys there in the summer and an elite kicking camp. Let everybody eyeball them and bird dog their kickers and see if they see a committable offer they want to extend to the best guy out there.
Noah Chumley's the kicker from Savannah, who I mentioned a moment ago. Joel Moody says tougher game this year, 2 high-profile home games, Notre Dame or Texas A&M. I know which answer I think to this one.
What was the question again?
Which of those games is going to be tougher, the Notre Dame game or the Texas A&M game?
Texas A&M will definitely be tougher. It's the SEC opponent. It will mean a lot more for conference play. Might have some attrition in the program in terms of that's the time where a key starter or two might be dinged up a little bit, and Texas A&M will be looking to come in and make some noise. Georgia's also going to treacherous back stretch with folks like Florida, Auburn. You got Georgia Tech, and then you had Texas A&M in there as well. And I don't think Georgia has a bye week before A&M as well. So
I wonder how long it's been since Georgia's played a November game against a top 10 opponent that was not Auburn. I think that's really interesting to see what I think could be a top 10 team that late in the season. Anthony Jones on YouTube says, will Georgia throw to its backs more this year? With unproven wide receivers, is that a possibility?
I definitely feel that. Because that's a way to extend the passing game while also giving those safe, protect your defense type throws for a defensive-minded program like Georgia. Brandon, one of the things we did, I want to make sure to fuel our forum listeners, forum readers today, is I dropped hey, send us a question out of our forum, and I want to pull one out of here as well.
All right.
South Georgia Dog asks, who's a guy in the recruiting scene as far as prospects that doesn't show up in Dog Nation chatter, but maybe we should be talking about?
Good.
That we have at least a puncher's chance of landing. We mentioned his name earlier, folks, and that is Jay Hardy, the defensive lineman out of Chattanooga.
Very interesting.
That's a guy right there. There's another question about tight ends, and we've mentioned the Canadian tight end quite a lot, George Johnson. One of the questions is perhaps if Georgia doesn't get a guy like both Eric Gilbert and also Darnell Washington, who's the next option on the board for tight ends, and I think George right there out of Canada, Mr. Johnson out of Canada would fit that bill.
Or we give South Georgia Dog the $50 Kroger How About Them Groceries gift card today.
South Georgia Dog. See there, you pay attention on your forum, you're on your forum, you answer the bugle call to give us questions so we can not only give YouTube and Facebook, but also the Dog Nation forum some love in our hurry up. And you're going to get yourself a $50 gift card from Kroger, and I bet that means Easter baskets. I bet that means the Reese's peanut butter eggs. I bet that means
grass you got to put down in the baskets. If you got kids, you know all about that. So it's all available for your local Atlanta Kroger. Congratulations to South GA on that, and for all of you who participate with questions and comments, we appreciate that as well. If you want more recruiting information from Jeff Sintel, please make sure you check out DogNation.com. I'll see you tomorrow morning back at 10 for Dog Nation Daily. And of course, we'd love to, if you're anywhere near the Atlanta area, see tonight, 6 p.m., the Marlowe's Tavern in Dunwoody for our spring game preview with our buddy, the great former Georgia Bulldog, John Stinchcomb. It's a busy week here for Dog Nation heading towards G-Day. We appreciate you allowing us to be a part of it with you. And we'll see you soon right back here on the Dog Nation video channels once again, including next Wednesday at 3 p.m. for another episode of Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger.